At Cannelton, Indiana, there's an unusual, easy-to-miss landmark that many pass as they follow the road next to the Ohio River. That place is called Lafayette Spring. It's a cave with water flowing at its entrance, but it's much, much more than meets the eye. Quick history lesson. During the American Revolution, a young Frenchman named Gilbert du Motier, Marquis de Lafayette, came to America. Simply referred to as Lafayette, he was a member of a wealthy French family that exchanged a life of comfort for risking his life on the battlefield. His amazing military reputation, made in America and in Europe, would eventually earn him the title the Hero of Two Worlds. Using his own money, he hired a ship to sail to America against the wishes of his own country. France wanted to stay neutral and forbade their citizens from becoming part of the war. Lafayette risked being put in prison, but came anyway. When the ship's captain talked about going to the West Indies to sell cargo, Lafayette instead bought the entire cargo hold so there would be no stopping, and would also avoid the possibility of his arrest. And when Lafayette reached America and met Congress and General George Washington, he offered to be a military commander for free. But why? Because he believed that deeply in the American cause. Lafayette believed it was his destiny. The Marquis de Lafayette was a fearless leader that quickly won his men's respect. He was also a brilliant tactical genius, using guerrilla warfare to trick the British into thinking they were up against a much larger force. He had his men spread out in the woods and attack the much larger British forces from many angles. This would spread chaos and fear among the British. Lafayette's leadership truly helped win the American Revolutionary War. Astonishingly, he was only 19 years old when he became one of George Washington's commanders. George Washington was so fond of Lafayette that when he was wounded in battle, Washington told the physician to take care of him like his own son. Perhaps the greatest thing Lafayette did, however, was help defeat the great British commander, Lord Cornwallis, at Yorktown. Cornwallis had long sought to capture Lafayette, which he referred to mockingly as the boy. But just the opposite happened. Cornwallis was so ashamed that he would not show up for the formal surrender, sending only his sword. With the American Revolution over, Lafayette left as a hero, with what we'd consider rock star status. He was so beloved and appreciated that he, his wife, and family were all given American citizenship. The endearing father-son-like relationship between George Washington and Lafayette lasted until the end of George Washington's life. Lafayette even named his son after him, George Washington de Lafayette. When the son came to America to attend Harvard, he stayed with George and Martha Washington, as if they were his grandparents. But Lafayette didn't stop at the American Revolution. He went back to France, where he not only fought in his own nation's wars, but also served in public office. During the war between France and Austria, he was captured and placed in prison for over 5 years. When he was released, he remained an agent of change and helped plan revolutions against oppressions in other countries, earning him the title Hero of Two Worlds. He was way ahead of his time, fighting for the equality of all people and campaigned for an end to slavery. People didn't forget what Lafayette had done for America. In 1824, President Monroe asked Lafayette to come back and visit, as so many wanted to thank him for his service to the American cause. What was planned as only a 4-month stay turned into 16 months and a visit to every state in the Union. Lafayette thought it would be a quiet, restful trip, perhaps thinking that most people had forgotten about him, but it was anything but. Soldiers that served under his command wanted to see him again and shake his hand one last time. All the streets were flooded with people who wanted to see the legend. People simply loved him. On his last trip to America, on May 9, 1825, a 67-year-old Lafayette was on a steamboat traveling the Ohio River when it started taking water and eventually sank. He was helped into a lifeboat by his son and secretary, and the two men got him ashore at this place, now known as Lafayette Spring. When local people heard that Lafayette was there, they came from miles around to see him and shake his hand. He was an absolute celebrity, a war hero, and what some considered the son that George Washington never had. He was well loved by everyone, and it truly surprised him. To the top left is a small cavern. The rock wall is covered with very old, chiseled letters. As well as remnants of old advertising. There's a historical plaque placed there by the Daughters of the American Revolution, commemorating Lafayette's stay here. Strangely, there's another plaque dedicating the site to Abraham Lincoln, who grew up in southern Indiana, not far from here. At the base of the rock is a retaining wall and steps that go down to the spring. You can hear the water flowing in the distance. You can absolutely sense the history and spirit of the past here. It's very tantalizing to wonder what lies beyond the water and deeper inside the cave. But if you're not trained in cave exploration techniques, it's best admired from a distance. Across the street is enough parking for several vehicles. Just be careful when you cross the street. The traffic does not stop. As always, if you have kids, hold their hands and keep them out of the road. If you were to travel to Paris, France, and visit Lafayette's grave today, you'll find an American flag flying above it. One has flown there since he died in 1834 at 76 years old. In fact, even when the Nazis captured Paris during World War II, the American flag was not taken down. That's how much he was respected. The hero of two worlds. But you don't have to travel across the world to place your feet where a great man once stood. You can appreciate the tremendous history in our small section of the world here in Cannelton, Indiana, at Lafayette Spring.